Hey there guys, it's Jade here and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking you through how I made this monster. This absolute beast. It is my Cleves bolero from Six the Musical. Now you've probably watched part 1 and 2, which are my accessories and boots and making the crop top. Obviously I don't have them on now because I'm not putting the whole costume on, I'm not doing it. I have just finished making this as of today while I'm filming this video. There are things that I don't like about it. And there are things that I would do differently if I was going to make it again. I'm not making it again. I've completely had enough of making this costume. I just want to wear the full thing. I haven't even made the shorts yet, so I'm absolutely burnt out, but we'll get it done. We'll do it. So yeah, again, I've probably expressed in the other 2 videos, this is a worklog. So I've taken videos as I've been making the costume. This is not a tutorial. If you are looking on how specifically to make this, you can watch my video for tips and to see how I made it, but this is not me saying, and here you should do this with this part of the costume, and then next you do this. No, I'm not giving you a tutorial because I completely made this up as I went along. So I'm hoping that this video is useful if you're looking for tips or looking kind of how someone else has made theirs. But again, this is not a tutorial. I'm not teaching you because, you know, if I entered this into a cosplay contest, I would probably come bottom. Because this is not made properly, this is not done with proper techniques. I just kind of shoved it all together and this is what it's turned out like. So yeah, anyway, stay tuned if you want to see how I made Cleves' bolero. So I'm patting out the back. This is going to be a fold line, so this is basically going to be mirrored on this side. I created a template of basically the size that I wanted for the red strips, and I added the trim onto this just so it saves me having to sew trim on the fur. I figured this would probably be easier because it's flatter and less complicated. So I've basically been using this as a template to work out where I want my strips to go, and this is the back. It turns out that I've had to cut my fur pieces smaller than the leather pieces just so I could get this to fit on, because if this fur piece, for example, was the same size as this leather strip point, which is here, would end up down here and it would be covered by the trim and it just wouldn't look even. So I've basically made the fur pieces shorter. And I didn't really like it. I thought it looked a bit silly and too thin. But when you think about it, this trim is going to be here, so it's probably going to balance it out a little bit more. So it's not as bad. So I've also done the front piece. It's literally exactly the same as the back piece. Okay, just an update. I don't know what I've done, but when I started cutting this out, my squares ended up sort of going like that, and like my pattern, like they were just really wonky. So I've just sort of done a test random cut piece just to see if I can straighten it up, and that's fine. And I don't know how I've managed to do it, and I've had enough. I don't think any of that even made sense, but it's just, trust me, it didn't work. It was going wrong. And obviously my squares look a bit disgustingly cut because I can't cut all the way to the edge, because otherwise then I'm going to lose these squares, which I don't want. So I'm trying to cut very close, and obviously if you've seen me making my crop top, I'm doing the same as that basically. So there's going to be studs in between all of them, so you hopefully won't see that. I am basically cutting out half a V and then trying to match this edge up and sew it, when I've got a huge roll of this stuff and a huge amount of faux fur to use. Why don't I just cut V shapes? Why am I making my life so difficult? This is the one thing I hate about this hobby, and I'm sure a lot of cosplayers can relate to this, is you start making something and you're like, yeah, this is going to work, this is going to be good, I know what I'm doing, and then you start doing it and it goes horribly wrong. So you're like, okay, let me try again. It goes the same way, and then your brain suddenly goes, okay, but what if we did that but easier? And you're sat there like with 10 tries later, blood, sweat and tears, and you're like, oh yeah, why didn't I just do it that way? But you're 10 tries too late, and you've wasted your money and your time and your effort and your sanity. I am annoyed with myself. It's a good job I didn't get very far into making this before realising, actually, why don't I just cut the V's? So instead of me cutting this, I'm just going to cut a whole piece basically like that. And I think what I'm going to do is, instead of using this, I'm going to just cut loads of squares out and then line them up and work out where to go from there. Okay, it's been a couple of days. I think what I figured out is that either I'm really dumb, which I am, I already knew that, or the red squares on the leather are not perfectly geometrically aligned, or whatever the term is, I don't know. Because no matter my measuring and my cutting, it's just not working. Now, I was really stuck and really struggling, like, oh my god, what am I going to do? Because if you haven't realised yet, and I'm sure a lot of cosplayers are going to notice and agree with this, is that I am a perfectionist. And I like my costumes to, when I make them, to be as accurate as they can be, but also constructed properly. So normally, I would have a strip of red leather, and then you have a seam with it connecting onto a strip of black fur, and so on and so forth. That is how you would actually construct it. At least that is what my brain thought. But I found a picture. I forgot I saved it to my Pinterest board. I have a Pinterest board full of reference photos for like a lot of my cosplays. So I went through it and I found this one of them making a version of the Cleves bolero thing. And I don't know which version it is because it's got the red square leather, vinyl, whatever it is. But instead of having the black squares cut out, it's got a stud trim down the middle. And I know they did that on some of the earlier versions of the costume. So I don't quite know when the jacket was constructed, but I thought, And looking at the picture, it looks like the whole back piece has been cut out of the fur and they are placing the red leather strips on top. So looking at that picture, have I been imagining it wrong? That the strips are sewn together with the seams, or is the red leather just sewn on top? I'm getting absolutely sick to death of trying to make this costume more complicated than it needs to be for me. I have to remind myself that yes, you're a perfectionist, but you're only making a cosplay. It is not for the stage. It doesn't need to hold up for the stage. It has to hold up for a con day. It's not going to be the tearaway reveal. It's not made for the stage. It's not made for performances. It's made for photos. And it's made for larking around with my friends. So, I have basically done a test. I have taken a strip of the black fur that I'm using. It's got quite a short pile. And I've literally just sewn my test strip on top. It's really rough. You can see that middle red thread line down the middle is where I've just sewn it. And I thought, if it doesn't look too bulky and weird, I'm just going to do this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut one back piece, and it's going to be of the black fur. So I'm just going to have my back piece made out of fur. I am then going to take my red leather, I'm going to mark out the squares, and then I'm going to mark 2 centimeters from each one, draw a line, cut it out. So I'm going to have a red V shape. There isn't going to be any seam allowance. And then I'm literally just going to sew it onto the black piece, and then I'm going to put the ribbon trim over the top so you won't see the fact that I've sewn it on, and it's going to look neat, hopefully. We're going to try that. So it's the next morning and I have cut out my back piece. Obviously you can see that I've basically marked the centre back seam with some pins, because obviously I can't draw on this side of the fabric. I've also added my 2 centimeter seam allowance around the whole edge. So yeah, there's my back piece ready to go. This is my little test piece. I'm now starting to cut out the squares. They look really awkward, these ones, but if I cut all the way up to those corners, this square that I want to keep is just gonna fall out and I'll just have a horrible strip. So I have to keep those edges flat so that the leather holds it together. These are my tiny studs that I used on the crop top, and basically these are going to go here and there to hide the red leather. If you watch my crop top video, I think I talked about this, but the backing of this leather is felt, so when it comes to cutting it, it makes it really difficult because obviously you can see it poking out, and with my crop top I literally just kind of trimmed away at it with some scissors. I figured out that if I basically just like run my knife like this over the edge, I can pull back the felt around it. So I think when I've cut all of these out, I'm going to do that because it makes my life so much easier than having to trim it with scissors, being careful not to actually cut it. And we're gonna ignore that because I cut too close to the line, but when I sew it up, it'll be fine. So, as you've just seen in that video, 1V is on. It doesn't look too bad, I don't think. I do now have an issue in that I only have one bag of these little teeny tiny studs that go in between the squares. And every seller in the UK is out of the 3.5mm. Just these ones, just the 3.5, every other one is in stock. I'm not really happy about that because it's currently like halfway through April, and I figured if I crunched a little bit, I would get this one done for NCM May. But if they don't stock it quickly, then I'm screwed. I've got enough probably for one more V-shape, but I've got like 3 to do on the back, and then obviously the pieces to make on the front too, and also the waistband and stuff. I'll see if they restock them. I have ordered some from China, but obviously they're going to take about a month to arrive, which is not helpful. So we'll see. They might, you know, restock them, hopefully. Also, realistically, even if I did crunch quite a bit, there is still a lot I have to do for Cleves. I don't know if I'd get it done. I've got a full-time job and I've got quite a lot of little events coming up between now and MCM May at the end of next month. I'm not going to have much free time to get her finished, so we'll see. You never know. I'm going to keep working on her as I would normally. I don't like to crunch. I don't think I ever have, because I know it would stress me out too much and I would make too many mistakes and waste so much money, and for me, nah. I've got other cosplays I can wear to a con. This process was actually quite simple to do. My fingers are quite sore because obviously it's a lot of adding studs by hand, but I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know how much more I'm going to film of making these V-shapes, just because all I'm doing is cutting out the squares, removing the felt backing off of them, gluing it onto some black shiny material, studding it, cutting it, making and adding trim. That is literally all I'm doing for like the back and front pieces, and it'll probably get very tedious if I film all of it. So I don't know how much more of it I'm going to film, but I'll keep you updated. And the order of this video might be a bit strange, because if I don't get any of these, I'm going to have to just kind of do what I can. So it might be a bit of a weird order. I might have to start on the little sleeve wing thingy or what's-its. So we'll see. I just missed the table. I'm so done. So I've started my second one. I am 2 studs away from finishing this and I'm out of them. And I can't buy any more. They're out of stock everywhere in the UK. So I've ordered some from China, but obviously they're not going to get here for another month. I think I'm going to keep cutting these out and I'm going to at least get as far as cutting them out and sticking them on the black shiny backing. Cutting out as many of those as I can. I've got 2 more to cut for the back and then maybe I'll start on the front. I also need to cut my collar piece. I think maybe I'll start on the shoulder pieces, but also I need these studs for the shoulder wing thingies too. So the back is now done, and I hate how messy this all looks, and obviously this isn't stitched down and I haven't studded right up to the edge, as you can see. That is because obviously when it comes to sew, I don't want these getting in the way of my needle or anything like that. So I figure once I've sewn it up, I can put my trim over the seams and fix it. So that's why it just looks like a mess on the edges right now, but I'd rather it look like a mess now and then tidy it up when it's ready to be sewn together. But yeah, there we go. That's what it looks like, and now I'm basically going to do the same but on the front. So I thought I needed. So I don't know how long it's been since I filmed an update. It has been months. I'll say that much. It's been months. I have not had motivation for quite a while, and I also had MCMA coming up, so I decided to step back from Cleves because otherwise I was going to get really stressed out, and I was trying to restyle wigs and things for MCMA, so I just thought I'm just going to put it aside. But now that I've finally been back to a con after 2 years, 2 and a bit years, I don't know, I finally have some motivation back. So I figured it is time to carry on with Cleves, and I'm finally finished with her. And now before anyone asks, this is a hair dye thing. I'm fine, it looks weird, but it is just a hair dye patch test. So don't worry. So I think where I finished off was the back piece. So yeah, I finished the back piece. So there you go. Wow, there it is. Very happy with it actually, considering I thought this was going to turn out to be horrendous and I'd have to make it a dozen times. First time turned out okay, better than okay, but we'll see when I've sewn it together. I now have finished both of my front pieces. there you go. So they're gonna go there. Ooh, that's made me so excited seeing that. Oh my god. I now have to do the collar, and I'm thinking a lot of Cleves have this kind of design on the little collar that goes around the top, but some of them don't. And the ones that don't are sort of the older designs. Before Cleves sort of had this, she just had like a strip of trim running down the middle. And because my costume is turning out to be sort of a mash of loads of different Cleves, I'm just sort of picking bits that I like off each costume because I'm really picky. And also, like, I don't know, I just kind of, she's had so many different costumes, I kind of just want to incorporate a bit of all of them. I'm basically just going to keep my collar plain red and then just going to have a bit of trim along the top. My other reason for doing that is I don't want to do this anymore. This takes so long to do all of these. I just can't. So I'm going to make the collar. I do already have my pattern piece for that because I did the mock-up ages ago. I've also got to make the lining. So the lining is literally just these pieces cut out of a black lining fabric. I was going to go with red, but then I thought, no, we'll go with black. It's more, you know, forgiving. You can't see as much on black fabric. I also think I'm going to put some patch pockets on my lining pieces, especially like on the front. So like if you imagine this is like this front piece here, I'm going to put a little pocket on the inside because Cleves doesn't have any pockets. And now that I've been cosplaying for quite a few years, I find it so annoying when my cosplays don't have pockets. And obviously, yeah, I can add them. I made it. You know, I can add pockets if I want to, but on Cleves, on the shorts, it's going to be really difficult to do that. So I thought, if I add some sneaky hidden pockets in the inside of the bolero, woo, you won't even know. I probably just make them big enough to like fit my phone in because that's like the biggest thing I have that I want to put in a pocket if I'm at con. Otherwise it'll be like my Oyster card or something. So that's quite small and that's fine. I had to do 2 attempts at the collar because some reason the first collar I made, which is here, turned out to be way too small, even though I used the patterns I drafted on the mock-up and it fit perfectly. And these are exactly the same as the mock-up, so I don't quite know how that happened. But I've made a second one by using the measurements on the inside of this instead of on my mock-up pattern, and it just about fits. That's kind of, yeah, I feel like the fur is going to hide a little bit of where it doesn't join on, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I think now it's time to just start constructing it, which I'm actually really scared about. So I've already done my lining, so I've sewed up the shoulder seams. So I'm basically going to do the same on this one, and then I'm going to baste the collar in place on that. And then we overlay this and that and get it sewn together, and this is where it goes horribly wrong, so please pray for me. I have now sewn up the shoulder seams. They are completely matched, pretty much. And I've added like some studs and like bits of trim that I didn't do. So this side does match up completely, but this one, there is a little gap, but I can't fit a stud in there, so I'm just going to leave it. I would carry on with adding studs around here, but obviously this is like where the seam for the arm hole will be, so I'll do that once I know, like once the armhole is sewn up. Okay, the lining is in on this seam. Now I have to add the lining on this seam and then we turn it right side out. So yeah, you can see that's all very loose. But this is the finished edge. Obviously I've had to pin it because the leather makes it do this. But once my trim is on up along this seam, it will be fine. But oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to take away, I think I'm going to have to take away a couple of these studs because my trim is going to come along here. So I think I need to take a couple of these away. So I'm going to do that now while I can still manipulate the fabric enough. But it's happening. It's happening. I'm actually going to cry. I'm not going to cry, but I feel like I could cry. I didn't think I was going to be able to pull it through the shoulder seams very well, but actually it came through really easily. I just went really slowly and tried not to like pull on the studs. I just pulled on, like, grabbed hold of like the leather and the fur and pulled it that way instead of just like trying to poke it through the pencil. Because before, when I've done that, I poke it through like a pencil or the end of a paintbrush and then I just punch holes through the fabric because I'm pulling so hard. So, oh, I'm so, oh my god, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Look how good it looks. So the next thing to do is to sew up like the two side seams for the lining and the body, and then I'm going to just double check that there's enough studs, because I've had to like go through, so like for this part or something I've had to go through and like check that the studs line up with the edge. So I have like this bit of trim which will be going along here, so I have to make sure I've got enough room. So I'll go through and add any extra studs that I need to add. I'm also going to just double check that I haven't pulled any studs off before I sew it up. But yeah, I'm going to sew up the sides and then we hem the bottom, like we sew up the bottom and then it's done. The main body anyway, then I have to do the sleevey things and the trim. But one thing at a time. I literally cannot believe that this worked and it's looking so good now. I thought, like, when it was like put together in pieces, I thought, oh, this looks a bit rubbish, but I think it's going to come out pretty good. I hope anyway. I really hope so. Look at it. Oh my god, look at it. The fur needs a good brush as well. It's been messed up, obviously, where I was turning it right side out, but oh my god.
Get ready to dance.
Technically, the main body's finished. I know it looks really weird sat on my mannequin, but it looks better when it's on me. But I've had a lot of issues with these back fur pieces. You can see it's doing it here, but especially on this side. When I first sewed it up, the fur was doing this and it was just sitting like that. So I've put interfacing all on this part and then here and along this bottom hem, and it seems to have sorted it out. I've sewn it up completely, and now I'm going to tack bits in place, so you can see like around the sleeve, see it's like quite thick and rolling up because of obviously the leather. So I'm going to be adding some little tiny tacking stitches just around to stop it from rolling up. Okay, here I am with my first mock-up practice patterning of my sleeve wings. This one's going to have a bit of wire in, so hopefully it's going to sit more like that. But I just can't work out if they look too big or obnoxious, or whether I should just go for big and obnoxious. I feel like they look okay. Like I was worried that this one's tucking too far under my arm, but ow. There's lots of pins in this. This is very painful. It's going to sit more there. So maybe it is. But if I make them any thinner, then I can't do my black square design. So yeah, I just can't decide. So I have started planning out my sleeve wings, whatever they're called. So I'm going to have 5 of these. So 1 of those, 2 of those, and 2 of those. So my camera's... Tell you what, I'm going to flip the video. So I'm going to look probably weird, but hopefully you'll be able to read it. This is really rough. And then I'm going to have the band to sew them onto, and this is made out of fur, which goes in between these. They're like sandwiched between. Okay, so I've cut out my pieces that I want to use. So I have this strip here, which my Velcro is going to be going onto. I then have this piece here, which is my fur piece. As you can see here, I forgot to add this on. So when it comes to me cutting my pattern piece, I'm just going to add 2.5 width, just so I have a piece that fits that. And then I have my 3 strip thingies. So I have the ones that go around the bottom of my arm, like near the bottom. So I'm going to cut 4 of those. I have my middle piece, obviously, which I have to cut 4 of. And then I have to cut 2 of these, which sit on the top of my shoulder. So I have to cut 4 fur pieces and 2 interfacing pieces for this. Then I have to cut a layer of leather, buckram and vinyl for some of my designs. Now looking at the pictures, it appears that the top wing, I suppose, has just a layer of spikes along the top, or actually like 2 spikes on the top. So that's all I'm going to do. It doesn't have any of this kind of design on it. It's just plain red with some spikes on. But the middle pieces look like this, and they have a single strip of spikes going down. So obviously this one I have to cut 3 layers, but this one I have to cut 4 layers and cut my squares out and do all of that faffy stuff. So it's going to take a little while to do these. So I have to cut a red leather piece for this, a buckram piece, which is this kind of stuff. As you can see, it is very, very solid, very stiff. So if you really want to stabilise a costume piece, buckram is really good. I think it's used for like making hats and things. And then I have to cut the bottom piece, which is red vinyl. So that red mirror vinyl that I used on my crop top is going to be used on these. So my plan is, when I have this buckram piece, I'm going to sew a channel to put some wire in. So this was a little test. This is, I believe it's a 9 gauge aluminium wire. So you can see it's quite soft and quite bendy, but you still need to apply quite a bit of force on it. So I feel like if someone knocks into my shoulder when these are in, it will bend, but hopefully they won't, because they've got spikes on, so people will be like, yes, I'm going to avoid that. I'm just using some scrap ribbon I have left over in my stash that I don't have a use for. So yeah, I've basically made a channel for the wire, so when it comes to me doing that, nice and stiff and solid, and you know, it's not flapping and flopping around like these ones would, for example. You know, you can see that that's quite loose and flappy, whereas that's not, which is what I want. I want it to keep its shape and not look silly when I move around. all of my pieces cut out finally. It is currently really flipping hot in the UK. We're entering a heat wave, so it took a lot of struggling to cut out faux fur in this weather, but I did it. So I have all of my shoulder pieces and their backing and the buckram cut out. I finished making these. It's literally the same process as this, so I didn't need to film that. I've done my first test thingy. I've also sewn these up. I've got 2 of these. Whatever they are, they go there. Yeah, I made one of my small ones. So these are my bottom size pieces. So these are the ones that go here. And then I have some middle ones and then I have the top one. So, yeah, there we go. I don't really know what to say about it other than I did it. So it's just a layer of red leather and red vinyl, and then we've got buckram in the middle with like a ribbon channel sewn in, and you probably can just about see the impression of the wire. So there's wire in here that runs all the way down, and then we have some black bias tape. Now I bought the wrong kind of bias tape. I bought this kind which has, oh my god, it's not going to focus, is it? It's got 2 folds in it, basically. I don't know how to explain. I can't for the life of me think of what it's called, but I basically wanted the other kind. Literally just ironed it flat and then re-ironed it so it's only got 1 fold. And I know when you're sewing bias tape you have to sew it properly. I have not sewn it properly. I've done a cheat, not correct way, because I didn't leave any seam allowance obviously on my edges, but I need to just hide the raw edge where the leather and vinyl connect. So yeah, the bias tape is just kind of there for effect, I guess. So I don't really care if it's not sewn perfectly. And then there's trim on top, which is sewn on, and yes, you can see where I've stitched it on here with these stitches, but it is something that I've noticed I think is on the actual costumes, but at least I've seen other Six cosplayers doing it this way, and you have some stitching of the trim that you can see underneath. But again, I can kind of get away with it with Cleves because other Six costumes don't have anything sandwiched in between, but the fur is sandwiched in between, so which should hopefully hide some of it, because you won't be able to look straight through them because there'll be fur. So I can get away with it, I think. And then I have stuck my spike trim on it. The actual Cleves costume uses bigger spikes, more like the little ones that I used on like the crowns. But if I added those on all by hand, 1, it would take forever, and 2, they're really quite heavy, so these would be really heavy and I don't want them to be that. So I used this spike trim that I managed to find, and on the actual costume they use 2 rows of spikes, but because these are smaller, when I placed 2 rows on here it just looks really sad. So I went with 3 because 4 looked too much, so I went with 3. So yeah, so 3 rows on these kind of ones, and then I think on these ones I'm still going to stick with 1 row of spikes because I know on the actual costume they use 1 row, so I'm going to stick with 1 row on here. As you can see, I haven't gone all the way up to the end. Now this is because on the actual costume they don't do it, because if I were to spike this part, this would be touching the inside of my arm and that would really hurt. So I've kind of gone, so this is where the jacket is going to be. So this is all going to be inside the jacket on the shoulder. About halfway here, I went 2 centimeters out from that. So yeah, so it kind of just goes around the curve of the strip, whatever it is, but it doesn't touch my arm because it would really hurt. So I'm basically going to sew the ribbon channels on the buckram and add the wire for all of them first, then sew all of them up, then add all of the bias tape, then, you know, all of the trim, all of the spikes. Hooray, magic. Okay, they're all stitched up. That's literally the update. The wire is in, they're all stitched up. And now I am putting the bias tape on the edge. I am literally just pinning it and then sewing straight down. Do not do this. Please sew bias tape properly. Don't be an idiot like me. But I am at this point now where I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care anymore. I was trying to sew this costume properly at the start because I was like, oh, maybe I could compete with it. No. No. I know I look absolutely stupid with my hair, but it's drying and I've got curl gel in it, so that's why it looks weird. Just ignore that. I finally finished all of these. All of the spikes are now glued on, and I've left them to dry and cure for like 24 hours or whatever. I've also just made these, which is what my Velcro is going to go onto. Basically, just going to sew all of the things onto this, stick the Velcro on the other side, and then we're done. I have put Velcro loosely on the armholes, that's why it's inside out, because I just want to make these first, check that they sit okay, and then I will stick it and stitch it down properly on the jacket, because I didn't realise how sticky the Velcro I bought was. Normally the stuff I get, it's not very sticky, stick it on anyway, and I have to like sew it on just to make sure that it's gonna stay, but no, it's really sticky, so yeah, I think I'm going to still sew it on anyway just in case, because I just never have much luck with Velcro, honestly. First thing to do is to bend all of these in half and sandwich them on here. I think I'm going to roughly tack it by hand because I really don't think my sewing machine is going to get through this 2 layers of fur and interfacing, and then, you know, like layers of leather and vinyl and buckram. It's not going to get it. It might, but I also don't want to break my machine. So I might just try and tack it by hand. Okay, so I folded up the other ones. I'm going to let that one dry. So literally, it's just going to go like that. So I've got my edge one here, and I have that one is also coming off. Great, we love it. But you get the idea. Then that's going to slot on there, then the middle one, and then blah blah blah. Hopefully you get the idea. I need to fix these. Just seems to be this edge that just doesn't want to stick today. So that's fine, it doesn't matter. We will stick them and just hope and pray that it'll be fine. I have both of them done. That's what they look like. I literally just tacked them together. I'm now currently sewing Velcro onto the top. I did have adhesive Velcro, which is what's inside this on the armholes, but I don't know why I picked adhesive Velcro, because I never ever have anything go right when I use adhesive Velcro. It never ever sticks. So I bought some sew on Velcro, and that is what I'm doing to this. Now my fingers are almost bleeding because, as you can imagine, this is very hard to get a needle through, but that is the kind of shape we've got, so it's definitely getting there. I did already do a test try on, but that's why I've had to get different Velcro, because it wasn't having it. But I think I like it. At least I like these, but as soon as it goes on the jacket, it lifts up the shoulder, because obviously this is quite bulky. I didn't plan for that because, as you could tell, I'm winging this costume, and I think I'm being a bit over ambitious. I probably shouldn't have started making this costume, but I'm almost 2/3 of the way through now. I need to just try and finish it. So this lifts up each shoulder seam, so the jacket does not sit on my shoulders now, it sits a bit above. I'm a bit concerned I might look a bit like a hunchback, but also I can't change it, I can't do anything about it, I can't be bothered to do anything about it. And the plus side is, at least I'll get some air going underneath the jacket. The Velcro is on, both of them. So now I am just going to double check that all of my spikes are stuck on, especially on the underside, because this is where they like to come off. So I'm just going to make sure that they're properly glued down. And then we're going to try it on. And I'm very scared to do it. I'm not going to lie. I am terrified. Okay. It's done. It's a nightmare to get on. I have to have someone put this on for me because I didn't account for extra arm space in the armholes. So if you are going to make this, please remember you need extra space in the armholes if you're putting anything underneath them. And of course someone decides to use a strimmer while I'm filming. Thank you, neighbour. Thanks so much. I'm glad I added wire because they are nice and solid. They are not going anywhere. They're not floppy and I can bend them into any position I want, which is so helpful. So that was a good thing. Well done, Jade, for that. There are things I would do differently now, but the fact is I finished it and this was the part of the costume that I was dreading the most, and it didn't turn out as badly as I thought it was going to look, but it also doesn't look as good as I want it to. So yeah, when I try the full costume on, once I've made it and wearing the whole thing, I might think differently. I might like it. I think a lot of times when you're cosplaying and you make a certain part of the costume and you try it on, you don't like it, you put it on with the rest of the costume, it looks great. Hello, this is me from the future. It's been 5 months since I finished that bolero. I have since worn the full Cleves costume, as you've seen in the intro to the video when I filmed those videos, taken some photos, and also worn it to the first ever musical con in the UK. And looking back at this final video that I filmed, I'm being incredibly harsh on myself, and I think you can tell how annoyed and how tired I was of the costume at this point. I would just like to come back in and say, actually, I really love the bolero and I love how it looks with the rest of the costume. On its own, I know there are still things that I need to fix, or like things I could make better if I'm ever going to make it again, which I'm not, because no thank you. In hindsight, it's one of my favourite things I've ever made, and getting to wear it to a convention and seeing people's reactions online and in person and getting to actually wear it with the rest of the costume makes so much difference. So this is just me saying, basically, I don't hate it as much as I appear to. I was just incredibly tired and I'd had enough, as you can probably tell. I truly think it is one of the best things I've made, even though there are flaws to it, and yeah, it probably wouldn't do as good in a cosplay competition as I said at the beginning of the video. To me, that doesn't matter now. It did back then, but 5 months on, it doesn't matter now. And I'm also very thankful for all of the amazing comments and reactions and lovely things people have said about it. So this has been Jade from the future. I didn't point this out. This is Phantom. There we go. I was just thinking that might look a little bit weird in the background. Don't mind me. I absolutely love how it looks with the whole costume. On its own, again, meh. But with the whole costume, mwah. And the shoulder wings are like one of my favourite parts now. I just love them. I love the shape of them. I love how they look. Don't put yourselves down so much about a costume, because looking at myself and how defeated I looked, I was like, Future Jade is like so obsessed with this cosplay now. At the end of the day, people are only going to see the good. They're not going to see the bad. So back to past Jade now. So thank you very much for watching this video. I assume it's probably a very long one, so if you've made it to the end, congratulations. I don't know how long it is because I haven't edited it as I'm filming this. I hope this has been useful for you, as in knowing what to avoid. Don't follow what I do. I mean, you can, because I got a half decent outfit out of it, but also give yourself enough armhole space. Check out the next video in the series, which will be about making my shorts. I'll shut up now, and I'm probably gonna cry in bed now with some chocolate because I've had enough. Bye.